Hello, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines. Our guest is Jason Ard. He is the Chief Deputy for the Livingston Parish Sheriffs Office. Jason's going to talk to us about all the roles that one has in the police and the Sheriff's Office. He's going to talk to us about his role as a patrol officer, as a detective, and as currently the Chief Deputy. So join us on the next Legal Lines with Jason Ard, Chief Deputy for the Livingston Sheriff's Office. Hello, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to thank you on behalf of myself, Sean Fagan, and Corey Ogeron, and our entire staff for letting us come into your homes for the last 10 years via Legal Lines. We hope that you've come to a greater understanding of how the law works and how the government works for you. So from all of us, thank you. Welcome to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith, and I'm pleased to have on the show today Jason Ard. He is a Chief Deputy for Livingston Parish. Chief, appreciate you coming in for the show.
Appreciate you having me, Locke.
Just tell the folks a little bit about yourself. As I understand it, basically you've been working since the moment you could.
Yeah,
and it's been in
my
this
whole
field?
Basically my adulthood, I've been at the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office. I started out at a young age. Some say I'm still at a young age, but
what, 38 years of age?
Yeah,
Look, I'm
38
50.
years
That's
of age
real
now.
young to
But
me.
I was right at 20 years old and was given an opportunity by late Sheriff Odom Graves, and he hired me as a prison guard at the parish prison, and so I started my career there and just worked my way up from the bottom to the top. And during my career, early on, the Sheriff Odom, Mr. Odom Graves, gave me an opportunity to move from the prison to the uniform patrol, in which I took that opportunity. And not long after that, Willie Graves was elected sheriff, and about halfway through my patrol experience, and Willie then called me in and asked me at the age of 25 and said, you know, look, I need a nighttime supervisor.
Well, let's talk about each of them. As I understand it, you at a very young age, I think you said 15, you decided you wanted to kind of check out the whole law enforcement.
Yeah, at 15 years old, yeah, I was a cadet, and a little police cadet. They have Explorer programs, and we were with the Denham Springs City Police, and so I kind of started getting some interest in it. So I actually went there, and I actually was one of the with the first cadet program from Denham Springs that actually went to Gulfport, which is a little Explorer Academy. It's 1 week long. It's on an Air Force base over there in Gulfport, and it was. You stay there, you spend a night, and do PT, shooting guns and all that. So it was really a really cool experience, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And what's so really awesome about it is today we actually have an Explorer program, and we actually send kids 14 years and up to that same Explorer program and have mentors that go with them. So it's exciting to know that I actually done that, and we're actually trying to offer it to kids as well. But
that's wonderful.
I knew at that age that this is something I wanted to do. And of course, my dad was laid off, and a lot of people know about the big Ethel Corporation layoff. And I was around 12 years old, and he has 4 boys. I have 3 brothers, and we had to go to work. And it was a struggle for us, but we all worked at an early age. And I remember on weekends going and cutting people's grass.
Sure.
Daddy needed some help on oil spills and things like that, and we would go and we'd help. That's what we had to do. And I worked at Winn-Dixie as a stock boy. As soon as I turned 15, my mom brought me up to see the manager, and he said, well, I'm not really hiring. And I remember telling him, no, you don't understand. My son's going to work today. And I did.
Put that boy to work, right?
He did, and I worked through, helped with my mom and dad through high school and stuff like that. So it was a struggle with us, but all 4 of us, we all have great careers, and we've all basically put ourselves and worked hard to get where we all at today.
So when you first started for the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office, it was, I guess, in the prison part of the Sheriff's Office?
Yes, it was a prison guard. We actually were responsible for all the inmates. We actually had to do head counts, hourly head counts, give them medication, make sure they're fed, get them to court, transportation, maybe it might be out of parish for court somewhere else, doing nightly watches on the outside of prison to make sure there's no escapes going on. And at the time, we actually had what they called a chase team. We actually had bloodhounds, and I served, and we actually volunteered. And if we had an escape or a big manhunt going on, we would actually go drive the vehicles to and pick up the bloodhounds and go out to these scenes where the deputy
and you
was.
actually did that?
I actually helped them do that, and it was exciting to be able to do that young deputy, that was something we looked forward to, because you felt like sometimes you were in prison with the inmates. So to be able to
nice
get
to
out
outside the walls,
right, get outside the walls, and so it was fun to have a little team like that. So,
well, and as I understand it, Livingston Parish has just constructed a new prison.
We did.
Explain to the folks about
and
that.
It was much needed, and they were able to actually dedicated tax rededicated to actually help with the building of a new prison, which we so desperately needed, because we were averaging about 150 to 180 inmates. Well, our population is well over 100,000, and we were just really having to let criminals out, not be able to give them the sentence, and then we were actually sending prisoners out of parish, which was costing the parish money.
Right.
So now we have a capacity with a new prison a little over right at 600 inmates. So it was, of course, we would like to have even more space, but we have something now that actually helps us
protect the public.
Protect the public a lot better, and we don't have a problem keeping the beds full.
That's I guess a good thing and a bad thing.
It is a good thing. It's a bad thing. But we don't have to let people that need to be in the prison out.
That's
because of space. So
well, and after you worked for the prison, you said you, I guess, became a deputy or a road deputy?
Well, there was a patrol officer, a deputy, they call road deputy, and I was given an opportunity after about 2.5, almost 3 years in the prison. They asked me to go out on and be a patrol officer, patrol the streets of Livingston Parish. I was excited about it, and I took on the task of road deputy, and went out and just did everything I could to help protect the parish, and started making arrests.
I guess that's kind of like the T.J. Hooker or whatever, right. Kind of shows that we
called a first responder, and those kind of things, and it was. I remember then what's so different about how we were trained then to now. This was the early '90s.
Right.
We didn't have, we had low band radios. We didn't have portable radios. And when I went out, it was with a training officer. He told me, he said, make sure when you get out on the scene, you don't have no means of communication once you leave your unit. So you have to make sure you roll your window down, hang your microphone out the window, turn your parking lights on. So if you do get in a bind, you try to get back, or if you can't get back to your radio, the people that are responding to you or trying to find you, I'll see your car, and that's why it was important to have your parking lights on. So
yeah,
I'm about 23 years old when this was told to me, and I'm like, okay, but it was actually something you learn how to talk to your citizens because if you have a disgruntled person, sometimes you can't just pull your gun out. You have to
talk to them. Diffuse the situation.
Exactly, and you can't just pick a radio up and, hey, I need some units over here. You had to wind up trying to get yourself back to that unit, or ask somebody to call for you, and things of that nature.
Now,
so
I know the
technology has changed a lot.
Well, that's what I was
then.
about to ask, because I understand that you guys are pretty high tech now.
Yes.
You've got basically what, video cameras in the units, and you got
We have everything. It almost looks like a spaceship when you sit in there, but it's technology is great. And it wasn't long after, it was right around, I want to say 95 to 96, somewhere, that we actually went to the high band portable radios and radios, and it was neat to be able to stand, and we just thought this was the greatest thing that ever happened, but we was able to stand in Watson and talk to the other deputy in Springfield.
And it improved everybody's safety.
It improved, and it was just something that, it was just an awesome feeling, and to some it wasn't that big a deal, but to us it was, because you were able to communicate all over the parish. It was a safety factor, and we were actually starting to grow, and then not long after that we started getting the actual laptops, where we actually went to doing the calls over the laptops, and it just, things started growing from the radar, the equipment, and just everything. We have LoJack systems, which is a system helps actually find stolen vehicles. So there was just so much technology that came over the next few years after Sheriff Graves took over and actually started changing the equipment and how we actually, law enforcement, how we actually police the streets.
Well, Livingston Parish is the second fastest growing parish in the state now.
Right.
And you indicated well over 100. I think it's
around
around
128,000 population now. And we've seen a big growth right after Hurricane Katrina.
Well, let's continue this on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith with Legal Lines. Chief Deputy Jason Ard will be right back. Hello, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to thank you on behalf of myself, Sean Fagan, and Corey Ogeron, and our entire staff for letting us come into your homes for the last 10 years via Legal Lines. We hope that you've come to a greater understanding of how the law works and how the government works for you. So from all of us, thank you. Welcome back to Legal Lines. Again, I'm very pleased to have on the show Jason Ard. He is Chief Deputy with the Livingston Parish Sheriffs Office. Again, Jason, thank you so much for being on the show. We're talking about you've been from the low man on the totem pole to the high man on the totem pole, and you're explaining to folks basically what you've done. You were talking about being a patrol officer. Tell the folks what you've done next.
Well, not long after being a patrol officer, about 2 years, Sheriff Graves called me in, and I was 25, and he said, look, I'm looking for a supervisor to actually help run the patrol division at nighttime, and so I took on that task, and it was basically some of the same thing other than you basically supervised your shift. You had to make decisions at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was also responsible for bonds when people would actually want to bond out of jail and things like that. So it was making sure the administrator was informed of things that went on that night. Any type of fatality or homicides or anything of that nature, we had to make sure to communicate that back to.
So you're kind of shifting a little bit from strictly, I guess, a man on the front lines to more management, administrative.
Right.
That was the beginning of it.
Right. And we were like always so short with manpower that I was not only a supervisor, but I was also a frontline patrol officer as well. I still had to catch calls and still had to work scenes and things of that nature. But it was basically I was the man responsible at night. And then I understand
you then got promoted again to detective?
Right. I was in supervision for right about two years, and Sheriff had an opening in investigations, detective division, so he asked me if I wanted to go, which I did, and I took on that role and went into investigations and actually began to work from homicide detective, homicide to burglaries, thefts, rapes, any type of sex case they had. It was a very challenging job. It really was. However, it was something that I learned a lot.
So this is kind of, I guess, where you really encounter some really serious crimes.
You encounter serious crimes, and coming from a patrol officer, because a lot of times you go to the scene, you take the initial call, and a lot of times the patrol officer doesn't actually follow up. They actually send it to the detective division. So there's a lot of times you don't really know what happened to the case. Well, now I'm in the role of I get the case, and now it's mine. And I take that, and also make sure, the biggest thing is at the end of it, make sure you get a prosecution out of it.
And that's exactly where I was going. This is extraordinarily important because you want these criminals taken off the streets, and the only way that happens is if they go to court and they're found guilty and they're put away in the prisons.
That's right.
And if you guys don't do your job right, then they don't go to prison because the DA doesn't have the evidence they need.
Right, and not only, and when you in a lot of what you deal with victims, and the victims, if it's the victim of a burglary, you're their only source of what's going on. So you have to keep them informed of what's going on. You have to make sure that they understand that, hey, I just don't have anything, or I don't have any evidence, I don't have any information, or I do have information. And a lot of times we need to make sure that we get these victims involved in this crime, because you need them to testify.
Absolutely.
You need them to be involved in your case with you, and the more you keep them informed and let them know that you're interested, then they stay interested, and it helps for a better prosecution in the end.
Now you're trained, I presume there's additional training and education and formal classes that you have to attend?
You have to go to, we went to a lot of the interview and interrogation and learn how to do that, homicide schools to basic burglary investigation, fingerprinting. There's so many things involved with it, and actually victim assistance type classes, domestic violence, and it's just so many training hours upon hours of different classes, and it's so
I read somewhere about
challenging.
FBI training also.
Yes, that was something I did later on in my career, is actually go to the FBI training.
So the bottom line is it's not only an on the streets education or on the job education, but there's formal education that's continuing during the entire process.
And a lot of these are college level courses. You get credits for them, and it's something that it's continuing education. It's something you have to do. And of course, Sheriff Graves has always been really big on sending us to training and to better in our training, because he wants to make sure he offers the best, in which I took advantage of that. And anything that I could get my hands on, I did. At the same time, I was actually in detectives, right as I was taking the transition, we were seeing an increase in drug activity.
Yeah, in fact, I read that Livingston has a real meth problem, is that right?
Well, I wouldn't say we had a real meth problem, but we have had some challenges with meth. And But during the time, we actually hadn't seen meth yet, but we had the marijuana, the crack cocaine, and things like that was on the rise. And we started seeing some incidents where we had a couple of Baton Rouge officers that was shot and killed, and things of that nature, of narcotic raids and stuff. So we actually started looking into developing a special response team, which is better known as a SWAT team.
I got you.
And so I actually started going to classes for that as well. And I actually helped develop our first special response team, the Livingston Parish Sheriffs Office. It kind of started, got kicked off, and we basically started doing all the narcotic raid warrants that Narcotic Division had. Any warrant that the Detective Division would have, any type of high-risk warrant, barricaded subject, felony arrest warrants, we actually done as the special response team. So while I was in the Detective Division doing those training, I was actually training for that as well. So I was getting overwhelming training experience there in the different things, but we were really trying to focus a lot on trying to attack these drug dealers.
So the SWAT team I'm trying to kind of process what you're saying, and it sounds like the #1 job of a SWAT team is to go in and get somebody.
Right.
Bottom line.
Right. When you have a problem area, that's the guys you send in. They go in, and basically what my job was to do is we organized this team, we trained. They had 12 to 15 hours a month. They had to train extra on top of everything else. And what we did is the narcotics units would come and say, hey, we have this person, this is what we have them for, whether it's a camera buy or it's, they have information on it, they're able to write a search warrant, he's carrying a gun, anything of that nature, he's selling drugs out of his house. We would actually do an ops plan together. We would team up. I would do the ops plan and see how we're going to hit the house. We would actually go in, kick the door in, go in, make the arrest, put them in handcuffs, sit them all around on the couches, and then most of the time we would go outside for outer perimeter while the narcotics division would actually do their investigation.
So you guys are basically the tip of the spear, so to speak. You're going in with the real high danger event, and then the other guys come in after y'all secured the premises. Right.
And it was adrenaline rush, and it was very dangerous, very dangerous job, and that continued on and it grew over the years. So much so, after being in investigations almost 2 years, the sheriff asked me to move to the training center, and to not only help with the training of all the officers and certification of all the deputies. Also, he wanted me to be able to have full-time attention to this SWAT team because it was getting to be so demanding. I mean, we were getting called out every night because we had an aggressive narcotic unit, and they did as many search warrants as they could. And we would also not only cater to the outside areas, we also would go in and do search warrants for the municipalities as well, inside the city of Denham Springs, inside Walker, town of Friends Settlement, to Albany, Springfield. So all of those municipalities within the parish, we were responsible for that as well.
So you were the SWAT team for the whole parish of Livingston.
Right. And we also helped St. Helena and Tangipahoa Parish at the time because Tangipahoa didn't have one at the time. So we actually took care of 3 parishes, and we actually also backed up Baton Rouge at the time as well. If they had a big major incident or they had where they were going to hit 3 or 4 houses at one time, they would call on us, and we would actually go to Baton Rouge or wherever it would be to do their warrant as well.
And again, it was very important how all of that was executed, because if it's done improperly, and whatever seized on the site can be thrown out of the courtroom.
That's right.
If it's not done right.
That's right.
And you guys are out there in the middle of it.
That's right. It was a challenge. It really was, but it was something that was very important to the parish and the safety of other police officers.
All right. Well, we'll continue this on the last segment. This is Locke Meredith with Jason Ard, the Chief Deputy for Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to thank you on behalf of myself, Sean Fagan, and Corey Ogeron, and our entire staff for letting us come into your homes for the last 10 years via Legal Lines. We hope that you've come to a greater understanding of how the law works and how the government works for you. So from all of us, thank you. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm very pleased to have on the show today Jason Ard. He's Chief Deputy for Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office. Again, Jason, thanks for being with us. We're talking about the SWAT team, and you were involved in it for what, 10 years, trained the SWAT officers. And I love the statistic you told me, and that was that nobody was injured.
Yeah, we've had a very successful adventure with the SWAT team. We've had a couple of close calls, but we've always come out on top of the incident. We didn't have anybody ever get injured on any of our entries or anything like that. So that says a whole lot, and that's what it's all about, because you want safety in the end. You want everybody to be safe, not only the deputies, but you want even the criminals and the citizens. I mean, you want them to come out on top as well, because it's all about everyone's safety. So, and we also had some other we actually went and we did a lot of different challenges with the SWAT team. We actually went and tried to test our skills with other SWAT
little competition,
teams
huh?
and stuff, and competition. So we traveled and did a lot of competition stuff within the state of Louisiana, and we were able to eventually work our way up to the top in 2005, and we were actually crowned the top team in the state of Louisiana.
Wow, I bet some of the big cities around didn't like that too much.
It was actually fun, and it was a little rival going on. But Baton Rouge City, the officers of Baton Rouge City would become really close friends of ours, and we kind of got them started in the competition thing as well. And now they basically had came in, and once they started doing the deal, they started competing. Now they are known as one of the top teams, or the top team in the state of Louisiana. So it's good to have them relationships.
That leads to a question of mine. Is it my understanding that the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office really has a lot of good coordination and communication and joint ventures with not only the local city police departments, but also the state police and the big city?
We work well with all of them, and you have to. It's a network. The criminals network, we need to. And we've always had a good working relationship with the Louisiana State Police and the surrounding agencies, in which we also stay heavy involved in the Sheriff's Association, which helps the communication process and sharing information, and that helps a lot too. But we've always had a good coordination with Baton Rouge City, East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office, Tangipahoa, St. Helena, all Ascension Parish. So we've always had a great working relationship. Hurricane Katrina, it really paid off.
Well, and in fact, I think you mentioned that actually the SWAT team was called to New Orleans.
We were actually the first agency to respond with the state police down to New Orleans right after Katrina. We were called by the state police, and of course, you know, they have to have people all over the state respond. And of course, right after Katrina, you had a lot of families state troopers trying to get their families situated before they left. Some of them had 45 minutes to a day response time. So we went ahead and loaded up about 10 or 15 of our SWAT members, and we went down to New Orleans, stayed there for 2 or 3 days before we actually was called back to Livingston till they get some more units down there.
What happened next? That was a good stint, and then you were promoted again.
I was not long after Hurricane Katrina, of course, in 05. We started seeing a huge increase in our population.
Sure, a lot of folks moved.
The call volume went up, and things just started really happening in Livingston Parish. And the sheriff started getting a lot of stuff going on in administration and getting to word they needed some help. So he asked me to come up and assist the administration in actually doing from internal affairs investigations, news media relations, and things of that nature, to just kind of help out a little bit. Not going up there for a title, just basically coming up there helping out with those type of cases. So I did so, and not long after I went up there and started helping out, the current administration retired, and when he did so, he actually appointed me to the chief of operations, basically, and we didn't have a chief deputy, so I still worked directly under the sheriff and started doing a lot of the administration of the office.
And the administration, I'm not sure folks understand the size of the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office. It's a big operation.
It is. You have your prison, which is a total operation, which
like
falls
a business
under
in and of
a
itself.
business in and of itself. And so I have to make sure that the bonding procedures are correct on all the bonds that come through there, make sure our account's not up, so work hand in hand with the warden. Also, we have the detective division, which we have a chief of detectives that's over, which I have to work hand in hand with, who keeps us informed of all the investigations, any questions they may have, make sure the investigations are thorough, make sure they helping the witnesses, victims, and things of that nature. And also establishing a good relationship with the district attorney's office, because you have to work close with them with cases. We also have, which we helped create during this time, a criminal patrol division, which is a new division that works directly under the realm of chief of operations, and it's a
was that putting more
deputies on the road. And what that unit actually does is target areas. If we have a rash of burglaries, these 4 units go out and they actually target those areas and basically dig until they can find out.
Catch some bad guys, huh?
And they actually, most of those guys are SWAT members. So it's an elite team, and they focus on high crime areas and any crime problem we have, a rash of crime we may have, whether it be an armed robbery we're looking for, a bunch of burglaries, theft, and copper thefts, things like that. Then they will focus on that till they get them arrested.
Now there's I call it a civil or money side to
right.
the
There's a actually civil side actually over the budget, and actually not only that, you have actually the serving of divorce papers, seizing of houses and vehicles and things of that nature, which falls under the chief civil deputy, which at the current time is Ronnie Morris. He's responsible for making sure people get their paychecks. We want to make sure we do that. These deputies carry guns. You don't give them a paycheck, they'll come looking for you.
Also putting their lives on
but
the line.
it's a lot with that. We have an annual budget.
So the sheriff's office and providing services.
I don't understand. It's just little things affect the sheriff's office and our budget, like gas prices. I mean, you have units that average 200 miles per shift, which is a 12-hour shift, day and night. So in 24 hours, that's 2 units. That's about 400 or 500 miles that they just put on their unit. Well, you start putting 100 units out there, and you go up a couple of dollars on gas bill, and next thing you know, it really hits your budget. So those are things you have to allot for and have to prepare for, because it's up and down all the time. And we've seen a big increase after Katrina as well. And a property tax also have a half-cent sales, which I've seen a lot of, because in Livingston Parish for so many years we've been known as the bedroom community. People move to Livingston Parish, but they spend their money in East Baton Rouge, Tangipahoa, where they have malls, Mall Louisiana, things of that nature. Most of the major industries are in Baton Rouge, Ascension Parish, and things of that nature. Well, Livingston, we have
that's got to be
2 major corporations, right, as Walmarts. We have 2 Walmarts. So a half-cent sales tax wasn't a lot, but now we're seeing a lot of development in Livingston Parish. We're getting excited about it. Jubin Crossing is going to be a huge development for us, and it's going to bring in some tax base that we are not used to. So it looks
a nice outdoor store over there too, don't you?
Right, and we have the Bass Pro Shop that came, and I think the Sam's Wholesale. So we have things that are happening in Livingston Parish that we're excited about. And but we also have the other divisions. We have other than the civil side, and you have the detective divisions, and then you have a motor division. We also, which is the motors, they do all the funeral escorts, the traffic division, basically what it is. We also take care of the, we have a training center, which is another division to make sure all your deputies, because all of them have to be annually certified on their firearms, that we require them to also go through. Everybody else is doing what they're supposed to do, and the actual administration part of it, which is at the courthouse in itself. You have the tax office where people are coming in paying all their property tax.
And y'all are the ones that are responsible for collecting the
right,
tax.
We're responsible for collecting the tax.
Was that like $70 million I read?
Yeah.
And then I believe you were promoted one more time to your current position?
Yes, about 2 years ago I was promoted to Chief Criminal Deputy.
And as I understand it, you're running now for the Sheriff's Office.
Yes, I am.
Mr. Graves is retiring.
Right.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
This is Locke Meredith with Legal Lines. Thank you for being with us.